Hello and welcome to Far Afield here on RivalCast Media. I am Sayomara, and this week I am joined by the one, the only Mr. Porkchop. We kind of jumped into the middle of things. Scott wasn't here this week, so rather than cutting things off, we had a pretty good discussion flowing. I figured I would just do a nice post recording intro and let you guys have the whole show as it was, because we had a good discussion. We'd go over, we do what we do. We talk some Hawaii, we talk some Iowa, we talk some politics. It's all good stuff. If you have a chance to listen to this, it's going up on January 5th, 2015. Make sure to wish Scott Alvarato happy birthday on the 6th. That's Alvarado_Scott. And, we'll be back in 2 weeks on, let me look at what the date is on the calendar. Professional, let me tell you. January 16th, we will be back on Friday nights. So, 73s, everybody, enjoy the show. Yeah. Somebody, I was listening to something on one of those local radio hacks was talking the other day about how, you see like couples that are married forever and how most of the time, when the wife dies, the husband dies pretty shortly thereafter. Where you turn around, when the husband dies, the wife live another 20 years. In LBJ's case, she lived 40 years or almost after his death. And and someone was saying like you can really tell like this is how the nature of the marriage, how long the spouse lives afterwards.
Well, it just means that we're stupid and we need somebody to take care of us, otherwise we die.
Men,
Yeah,
yes,
men.
yes, I'd agree.
Where women can take care of themselves, so they live
Well,
longer because they
yes,
can.
yeah.
We forget to eat sandwiches. Oh, my wife died. I forgot how to make a sandwich.
Or the food we make is terrible. Like you can only live off hot dogs for so long.
I've got cheese on it though.
Cheese, or there's cheese. No, it's better when there's cheese in it.
Cheese in it. I wrapped it in bacon
Oh well.
because I didn't buy bread.
Yeah. I've been eating sandwiches at Jimmy John's a lot lately. I don't know if you have Jimmy John's out there or you ever had it when you were.
I've had
Uh,
them, but no, we don't have any out
my
here.
wife likes it, and I've been eating it a little bit more, just kind of like, it's a. I throw some sprouts on it and some cucumbers and make it relatively healthy. And I'm like, this is stupid. It's just a sandwich. I can make a sandwich. So I just bought a bunch of bread, like Italian bread from the grocery store. I'm like, see, I can make this. This isn't that hard.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
But that's true for everything.
I am not. I'm not. I mean, not that. Excuse me. Jimmy John's or Subway are bad,
Mm,
but I've always been in the realm of it's a sandwich.
yeah.
I eat sandwiches at home. I'm not gonna go buy one.
Yeah.
So, but I never really ate McDonald's until I had a kid either.
Yeah. I I don't know if I was. I guess I can share this story. Uh, we'll just record an intro later. We'll just deal with it. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's
that's
fine.
fine. Well, just whatever. I was like, so I mentioned like New Year's Eve was the 25th anniversary of my grandmother's death, and so I was like 8 at the time, and I was
Right?
and that was about the same time Super Mario Brothers was coming out, or Super Mario Brothers 3 was coming out. If you, it had to be something like 87, 88. I don't remember exactly when it was, but
That's the one you got the tail, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was the one where you got the tail. But like McDonald's also had a bunch of toys, and we had like 2 out of the 3 toys. And I was thinking back on that recently, and it's like that doesn't make any sense because we never ate at McDonald's that often. Well, then I think back. Well, why would we have been going to McDonald's like every week, for a bunch of weeks consecutively to get all these toys and whatever? Well, because we were visiting my grandma who was in the hospital, doing cancer treatments at the time.
Right.
Yeah, and
But that didn't dawn on you until later.
well, I probably made sense at the time, but I hadn't really reflected on it sense that time. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh, like, why was that? Well, these two things being together are just one of those things. We like, oh, we're going, I just remember. I look at my daughter, and I'm sure your kid's the same way. Like the things they obsess over a lot, right? And
Right.
how you were that way when you were a kid. Like, it didn't matter if it was Super Mario Bros. 3 or Muppets or what have you. You just
Right.
you were just crazy obsessed with it. Yeah, I remember driving my Aunt Lori to the point of craziness because, on one of those drives back, there was some stupid Muppet thing. Once again, at McDonald's, because, apparently all the best toys were at McDonald's back in the late 80s. And
Well, they did get the trade. I mean, they got the ones with all the trademark stuff. That's for
well,
sure.
and they still do. I mean, I would say I don't know if they're good about getting those toys or what have you, but they definitely knew how to market to kids because definitely were
Right.
like, oh boy, we gotta get those toys. Let's go to McDonald's. But then we went
Yeah.
years without going to McDonald's again. Yeah, or it'd be such a amazingly rare occurrence.
Yeah. Well, see, I didn't. I mean, we went to McDonald's as kids. Don't get me wrong, but we didn't go very
Yeah,
often. For one, we lived out in the middle of nowhere, like you,
yeah. The
so
nearest
it wasn't
McDonald's
once.
is 30 minutes away. You don't tend to go a lot.
Yeah. And two, we drive by it, and I think my mom and my dad were just like, "No, we can go eat better food at home. We're not gonna spend the money for this." And and it made sense because for one, we weren't loaded with money where we just went out to eat all the time. I don't hardly ever remember going out to eat.
I
Period.
don't either. Not when we were young. But
And then
but
also,
if
I mean, even when we went on vacation, we camped and brought our own food.
hmm yeah, there were a lot
I
of
thought it was,
coolers.
we were supposed to do that. Yeah, I thought we were supposed to do that, and it was fun. But I
Mhm.
found out it's because we were just poor
you're
and
just
couldn't go
you're
out to eat
just
at
dirt
restaurants and stay in
poor.
hotels.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
we're just all dirt
but
poor.
we still lived, and it was fun. You know what
Oh,
I mean? So, and probably going into college, I ate McDonald's. Not constantly, but more. You know what I mean?
but
Especially dating my wife because my wife liked it.
well, but part of that's also just being growing up, and now you're at a point where you get to make your own choices. Like, well, I'm just gonna, it's a classic. You're doing the adult version of I'm eating candy all the time.
Right.
Is really what it comes down to.
I like Olive there. McDonald's is the place to go if you've been drinking and your taste buds are sufficiently dulled.
And there's a certain bit of truth to that.
Yeah, McDonald's is the place to go when you have a 5-year-old and they're,
And they don't,
and they're
and they
picky.
know it's not, and like, or the greatest thing in the world is chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
Like,
I have to admit, my son's not too picky. I just tell him you have to eat this, and he says okay.
my daughter's okay with everything except for like fruits and vegetables, which you know shouldn't really be surprising because who likes to eat fruits and vegetables, right?
My son,
Well, obviously, you raised your son right then.
I don't know about that. That's just what he likes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You put food in front of him that they want to eat,
Yeah,
and he wants to eat them. I mean, my wife is not a big fruits and vegetable person. She's I mean, fruit she likes, but not really
yeah,
vegetables. I actually like vegetables and not fruits that much. I'm not, the sweetness just isn't my thing for a lot of it.
yeah.
But I mean, my son is the only one I've ever heard come home and go, "Hey, mom, can we have Brussels sprouts with dinner?"
You're saying you little pork chop years ago wasn't like, Mama, can I have some Brussels sprouts?
No, I was like, "Oh, we're having Brussels sprouts. Yeah, I'll eat those." I just knew that I had to eat them, so don't even, why protest?
Yeah.
Just do it.
No, well, we do a lot of that with our daughter. It's like, well, this is the food that's here. You can either eat it or you can not eat. Right? This is it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I never hated them. I'm not gonna say I would. I wanted. I never said, "Hey,
Yeah.
mom, can we have Brussels sprouts?"
You're not saying
But
it wasn't the highlight of your week.
no, but it wasn't terrible either. I'm not gonna,
Hmm.
you know how that
Yeah.
goes. So,
Well, and I always found it
but yeah, no.
interesting too, like how people always rag on cafeteria food, and like I rarely thought cafeteria food was that terrible.
No, well, our school wasn't, but we had a decent. We had the same cook for, I don't know. She probably was there for 100 years.
I
So
was gonna
it's
say the cook who
the
was
old
there.
school recipes.
The cook who was there when I was in high school is still there. Okay, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, let's put it this way. When I moved to Iowa, the Florence was our head cook,
Hmm.
and she was 60 something at the time when I retired,
Yeah.
or when I got out, and when I went back, she had just retired 4 years ago, and I graduated in '92.
I found out that while I was back home over Christmas, that my kindergarten teacher is still alive. And this was a woman who I thought was ancient when I was in kindergarten, who I found out when talking to my dad that this was his kindergarten teacher. Like, my dad's, 33 years older than I am. And apparently we're 34 years apart in school. So we're looking like, okay, so this woman taught school for 35, at least 35 years. And
Yeah,
she's still, and so she would, she's got to be in her 90s. Wow, that's a good run. Apparently, the school doesn't take it out of you like it does now, or so the teachers say. I don't know. I thought that was
yeah,
kind of crazy. I
yeah. The smaller schools that tends to happen though,
mm-hmm.
where the teachers do stick around and and have, like I said, have been there forever.
Well, and I think it's any community. I mean, you just need people to invest in it. If people invest in a community, the community is okay. If it's just, this is a waypoint on on my way somewhere better. You know,
Right.
and that's kind of how I've always viewed the University of Iowa. At a bureaucratic level, it's a place where people get a job so they can go somewhere more important.
Yeah. No, I mean I get it, and some people are always going to be that way,
Mm-hmm.
no matter where they're at.
Yeah,
They have they have big dreams and think that that everything's just a stopping point.
yeah.
But there are people that like to settle down and just be in one spot. When they find a good spot, they stick there.
Well, I think we
So
all have a desire to. We all want that, even if we're not necessarily actively pursuing it. It's something we want our job, our job or whatever to be. I want this to be something I can do for the rest of my life. Maybe it's not something. May not. It's not true of all jobs. Obviously, your first crappy job you probably don't necessarily want to do your whole life. Growing up the farm, there literally crappy jobs, but
yeah, yeah, I know those jobs.
yeah, it's
I've done them.
yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know what the heck is. I'm looking at our chat. You guys are having some weird conversations. But unfortunately,
Talk about strawberries and stuff.
yeah,
Come on.
Bio's saying I never liked cheese all that much. Still don't. I don't know. I didn't like cheese much as a kid. I like cheese a lot now.
I have always liked cheese, and the way I look at things, if you don't like it, put cheese on it, and it'll make it taste better, and I can eat it.
We need more cheese.
Yes. I'm not really fond of that food. Throw some cheese on it, I'll eat it.
You know what we need? More cheese. Sounds like a
Yeah.
plan.
I've never heard anybody say, oh, that's enough cheese.
It's true. I can't
Just,
say it really comes up that often.
no.
So the real story is, Bio, what's wrong with you? How can you not like cheese?
Lactose intolerant, probably.
Maybe. I
So,
used to have. I knew an anthropologist who used to like their big example of how stupid Americans were was that Americans didn't know Africans were lactose intolerant, or like in Africa it's very common for um, you know people to be lactose intolerant. Like, okay, and that's an interesting example. But then you think about, like, okay, so why aren't Europeans lactose intolerant? Well, this goes to that whole idea of, like, well, the different kinds of civilizations you have, where you look at, Europeans were more agrarian, for long, sooner. So, you start having, you start planting crops, you start using more animals, you start, creating that system that can be used to, support human beings. Therefore, eventually, those humans adapt to have lactose intolerance. You're like, why would anyone know that? I get the whole, like, okay, we need specialists, but then at the same time, it's like, it seems like a very strange, like, if I were to say, okay, I need to know specialized information, I want to get an anthropologist, because, I don't know, anthropologists always struck me as a weird group of people who are not always the most with it, if that's a
Yeah.
fair way of putting it.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a fair point, but at the same time, it's also like, yeah. Like, should they have done their research? Probably. But at the same time, I don't know. I just feel like, it feels very nitpicky. A lot of times, you get a lot of stuff that feels very nitpicky sometimes. Like, oh, if only we had done this. Well, hindsight's easy.
Yeah.
Uh, I take the Mrs. Frisbee line here, and always say this is, a door's always open once you have the key. It's easy. It's easy to do things in hindsight because you already know how to do it. Once somebody else has done something, it's easy to copy them. I mean, the history of technology is pretty much an example of someone has a really great invention. The next guy comes along and says, "That's a really great idea. I'm going to make it better."
I've never had that thought yet.
Sorry, I'm just muting my mic. I think the stream is actually getting to hear all my coughing, but the people not listening.
I'm not hearing
Yeah,
it, so
that's because
hopefully.
I'm muting it on the Skype call, so it hopefully will not be on that. I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that should be fine. I have the same thing. Like I said, I'm just now getting over a sinus infection, so
Yeah, I just I've been good all night.
all antibiotic up.
It's one of those classic things. Like, oh, I've been great all evening. As soon as I get on, we start doing the show. It's like, like hacking up a storm. Like, great.
Well, I do think my wife is allergic to me because she tends to sneeze a lot when I'm
Mm-hmm.
home. So maybe you're allergic to me also, and it comes through the microphone.
Possibly,
I could be the problem.
or the solution.
I doubt that part. I haven't been the solution to much,
You
so
haven't.
I don't know why I'd start now. No.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, it happens.
You think so?
Some people are better at, yeah, well, some people are better at things than others, and that's not one thing I'm good at.
Some people are makers, some people are destroyers, right?
I am a good destroyer. I just destroy my stuff though.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I know.
The my mother likes to tell the story of I was probably 5 or 6 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and we were going to church, and we're going to Sunday school actually. And so my mom got me dressed, and obviously, where I'm from, that means that I had to wear like slacks and a shirt and a tie. At that age to go to church. And so she got me dressed, and then she started to get ready, and she comes out, and I was not out. She said she sent me outside to the car, and all my brothers out to the car. And she said she wasn't 5 minutes behind me, and I was in a dirt pile playing with cars, and I was covered with like mud and dirt from head to toe. And she was so mad, but she couldn't yell at me because my stepdad was laughing his ass off at me.
Parenting's funny that way
So
sometimes. Where,
yeah, so my mom took the rest of them to church at Sunday school. My dad got me showered and changed, and then we made it to church.
oh, that's good.
So I was not in a shirt and tie though, because that's probably the only one I had.
You see, I hear this and I'm like, there's an episode of Sesame Street about this. I had to watch not that long ago.
Yeah, like for the 12th time.
Yeah, I think so. I think Amazon Live trimmed down their Sesame Street selection substantially. Like, I don't really know why, but they did. I'm like, okay, that's strange.
We only watched it on PBS in the morning, and I tell you, it was always the same repeats.
Well, I didn't realize until I started watching it on Amazon streaming. It's like, wait a second, there's only like 12 episodes a year made. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I would have, I guess when you have literally decades of backlog, it doesn't really feel like it.
Well,
But,
and it only, you only count to 12 so many times,
yeah,
so
or 20.
yeah,
One,
and you learn 2 letters an episode. You've got the alphabet covered pretty
yeah,
fast.
you pretty much hit everything every year, at least 1 through
Yeah.
10. And
Yeah.
it is funny too to watch it. Like what, even like a decade ago, like they are wasting so much money. Like they're just burning it. Like we need to have these fancy puppets and have this weird Glee thing. I'm like, do you think a 3-year-old really cares if you're doing a Glee parody?
Yes.
I don't think they do.
Okay, I probably don't either.
But then they have these super duper animated things. Like, look at your roots. Your roots say, keep it simple, keep it straightforward. Don't just burn money. And that's what I don't know. I look at what Sesame Street is, and some of the their supposed problems because they've had layoffs over the last few
Oh yeah.
years. Like, why are you having trouble? Like, it's not like they're not making money. The merchandise still sells like crazy.
Oh God, yeah. Well, and I think that's a lot because even if the kid isn't into it that much, the parent
Mm,
remembers it and just thinks that's what a kid should have. You know what
yeah.
I mean? I mean, my son had a few, things, and he's still got an Elmo doll
Mm.
and stuff like that somebody had given him. So
No, I mean, my nephew was big into Elmo. My daughter was big into Elmo. She never really cared about any of the female characters, so I think that's a function of they're all terrible.
well, my son liked what's the flying school one?
Abby's Flying School. That
Yeah, when he was younger, he used to like that show. So
mhm,
that part
that
of
part
the
of
of the
it.
show, yeah. And then he liked the end with Elmo also.
Yeah, and then and then they change it so like Elmo has a musical now. It's like okay, and they're just dumping like more and more money. It's like we gotta be competitive. I'm like, people don't like the. It's kind of your argument like why do these like crappy low quality games like the one I'm playing right now, like FTL? Why is this a successful game? Yet all these big AAA titles fell on their face so hard this year. It clearly spent way more money and way more time. I mean, it doesn't, if it's a quality product, it's a quality product. The goal shouldn't be to make, oh, we have to get, stay up with the Joneses and have CGI and, like, we don't have enough musical bits in our show. Like, I don't think that's the problem. I don't think
No, but
that's why you're having problems.
no, and a lot of it too is I think a lot of them hype themselves up so much that people expect so much out of it, and then when it's not there, it's like fuck you, you didn't, all this hype. If you wouldn't hype yourself up so much, people would be like, oh, you know what, this wasn't bad. I only heard about a little bit about it. It was a lot better than I thought. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like with a lot of things that you're playing, like that Craft the World I was talking to you
Yeah.
about. I'd never heard anything about it. I just saw it. It was on sale, and it said it was kind of like the Terraria. So I started playing it, and I'm like, this game isn't that bad for the $3.99 I spent on it.
Yeah, I like it. It's nice, it's simple. And the thing with children's programming is most parents are looking, okay, is it basically educational? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay,
Right.
excellent. Does it, serve some other purpose? Do I as an adult get some entertainment value out of it? Yes or no? Now, if it does, that's great. If it doesn't, though, I mean, are you really the target audience? No, you're not. So.
Right. Right. No, and that's the thing too is I like you say I think a lot of times everybody thinks they've got to do all these things
Mm,
when like you say if they would just keep things a little simpler,
yeah,
you know, things would go a lot smoother. But you know, that's why we get paid the big bucks to do this show
I
because
know. we gotta have all the I mean, when you have all the answers like we do, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, people are just like, they look at you and they say, "Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't we think of that sooner?" Like, I don't know why you didn't think of that sooner, but clearly you didn't. So,
I blame your mother.
probably.
It all comes back to the mom, I heard.
Uh, you know, yeah, there are definitely people out there that make that argument. We could pull Baron in here, and he could tell us all about Oedipus complexes and things like that.
I don't want to know about him and his mother troubles.
Oh, I wasn't meaning it that way, Porkchop, but
Oh.
yeah, it's all good.
I thought maybe he had a crush that we should, and I didn't think he wanted it shared.
Well,
The Baroness might be a little upset.
she might be. She's been a. Have you read any of her fan fiction?
I actually have not.
Apparently, we are going to be featured in it soon. I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Does she want people to read it?
I don't know. What I was gonna say. I think we're in trouble. I think we're doomed.
I doubt that I've ever been in trouble with somebody writing fan fiction about me because this will be the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it will be the last time.
I mean, do you have a preferred way, or do you have like a? Do you want to always have be like in the picture you're described like wearing with a grass skirt on and the coconut bra? Or, I mean,
I actually just want to live longer than like one paragraph.
okay. So
I figure that maybe she's gonna be like, and Porkchop comes in and somebody stabs him,
yeah,
and that's all there is about me. You know what I mean? I'd like to just live longer than that.
you want to live longer than Scott. That's what you're saying.
Yes. And if she could mention Iowa State beat Iowa again,
Yeah.
that would be the greatest. It wouldn't even be fiction though.
No, it really wouldn't.
uh,
It would really just be the nature of things at this point.
Unfortunately for you,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of unfortunate. It makes me a little sad. I was listening to those of you, we are recording this on January 2nd, 2015, and Iowa just got its head handed to it by Tennessee today. It's in like 42-28, and honestly, the score sounds a lot better than the game was. It was bad, and I mean it's not Alabama falling over drunk in front of Ohio State bad, but you know Iowa's in a bad place football wise.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they don't get rid of the coach soon.
I was
I know they made it to a bowl game and everything, but I mean, as bad as the Big Ten was, they should have been higher.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. Well, I was talking to a guy when I was back home, one of my old coaches, and he's mad. Like he thinks he's ready to run the whole lot out on the rail. Like I don't know if I'm there yet, but I can see the argument.
Yeah, well, and I'm not saying. I mean, obviously, I don't know the whole, the AD, all that stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's been. Let's put it this way: we've been winning consistently the last few years against you.
yeah. That's not definitely not a selling point here in Iowa City.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that that's something that I guess I'm thinking that they should be, looking at.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
No,
So,
and it's one of those things like
no, I'm not saying we can't beat you, especially like basketball. We have a really good
yeah.
team. I'm not saying that you losing to us in basketball is a bad, like you guys are
No.
terrible. But when I say that we beat you in
We're not
football
saying you're
a couple
bad,
years in a
but
row,
we're saying you stink pretty bad.
yeah, when I tell you we beat you in football last,
Yeah.
more times than we lost in the last few years, yeah, I'm saying you're pretty bad.
No, and it's a lot of it's at a coaching level too. It's like what are the mistakes Kurt's had a problem pretty much his entire run of he hasn't been able to retain players. Like he just,
Yeah.
and you want to say that's a function of he has trouble looking deep into the souls of these young men and figuring out which ones aren't going to do pot while they're at college. Yeah,
Right.
that's a thing.
That is a thing.
Yeah, you kind of got to be aware of that. So
I'm aware of
yeah,
it.
well, what are you going to do about it? And so a lot of the kids aren't sticking around. So the core of, in my mind, what a program like Iowa is good at is it's good about building up players from the. It's not you're never going to have your big 5-star recruits here at Iowa, but you can build players up enough so that they can be meaningful contributors to your program when they're juniors and seniors. The problem Iowa's had is that when you're not retaining your players, how do you do that? Basically you need to be able to hold on to your players long enough so that they can be helpful to you. And we're not
Yeah,
we're,
no,
we're
I
not we're
agree
not
there.
doing that. That's the problem.
And I mean, it's not like you're Kentucky in basketball, where you're getting all these people and they're just there for the 1 year so they can be eligible. I mean, Iowa is not getting the recruits for football that are going to be there 2 years and and go to the NFL.
No, and we're never going to have those recruits.
No, I mean, well, I mean, I'm not saying you could never. I mean, you guys
It's
used to.
not, but I mean, it's not terribly likely. That's not the kind of player we're. That's not the program we are. For better or for
No, I'm
worse.
just saying, but I mean, you guys used to have an awesome program, and it wasn't that many years ago. And I don't know the downhill fall, but you know what? The Big Ten fell.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a certain amount of that too, and I think some of that is you are as good as your competition. And when our competition isn't great, you're at the same time you rise or fall to it. So that's part of it. I think Kurt has to take responsibility for it at least to some degree. Now you want to say he's doing the best he can in a less than ideal circumstance. I'm sympathetic to that view, but how often is that going to be the case? Like he is going to be here for as long as we kind of let him do it. So
Right, right.
I don't know. The guy
Yeah.
I was talking to back home was like, boosters are like 1 more year. Like I've never really been, I've always felt like it's a little bit too a lot of things get blamed on boosters and big donors at universities, and definitely those people have power. But
Right.
at the same time, your university administration make they make their decisions themselves. You can't say they're not making their decisions.
Right.
I mean, I definitely think if that choice is made, it's made at an administration level. Now, would it be the right choice to make? Maybe right now it probably is.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too is I understand that given the 1 more year, if somebody's only been there like 2 or 3
Yeah,
years, you got to give them time to get their program built. But he's been there a while.
he's
I
been
don't
here
get the
since
1 more year.
'99.
Well, that's what I mean. The 1 more year, it's what's 1 more year gonna do? How's that gonna help him be a better program?
Yeah,
You don't understand what I'm saying there. So if you're saying 1 more year, you might as well just be saying, get him out,
yeah.
in my opinion. Now, I'm not, hey, I don't know if there's anybody else out there that wants to go to Iowa, if you can get a good coach,
There's a
obviously.
certain amount of that too. Is the problem? It's like, well, who gets picked
We
up?
got to worry. You got to worry about that for sure. You know what I mean? I don't. You can't just get rid of a coach just because and then not have anybody even close to
Yeah,
replace. I'll be the first to admit that. So,
but I mean,
although I
how
don't
often?
think it'll be that
I
hard.
mean, but how often do you? I mean, Nebraska just kind of dumped its whole coaching program. I mean, it's they're gonna just they're just kind of gonna deal with it. And I'm like, yeah, that's how that works. You have to find somebody who kind of meets your program's expectations, and then try to find do your best to deal. If they don't work, they don't work. And when Iowa had
Well,
Licklider as their basketball coach, the guy didn't work. He had a good
right.
resume coming in, but at the end of the day, when it came time to actually, show that you're competent and can do the job, he couldn't do it.
But that's the other thing too is, I mean, Nebraska, I say, is a different situation. Nebraska hasn't fallen so far recently, so it's going to be easier to get a coach there than it is
Well, yeah,
at Iowa. Not that Iowa's good. I don't think Iowa would be that hard to get a coach. I mean, they have still have known as a decent program.
no, I mean,
It's gonna be easier to get a coach there than Iowa State. That's for sure.
well, yeah, but I mean, you don't necessarily need. Do you really need that great of a coach? I mean, you need a guy who can develop players. In my mind, I mean, that's the program Iowa is. Iowa needs people.
No, but you still need a good coach. I mean, to be honest, somebody who like Chris Peterson at Boise State when he was there.
Well, you need
It
someone.
wasn't a big program, but he was a good coach who developed players and had a system, and that won.
Well, and someone that
You
goes.
still got to win.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with that. I'm saying mostly my issue is that you need to have. I mean, a lot of that goes to having competent coordinators, which I think is arguably the biggest problem Kurt has. He's too loyal to his coaches. Like our current offensive coordinator is terrible. James O'Keefe before him was terrible. I mean, just because somebody works for you doesn't mean you're not willing to just because I hired you once and you don't like to fire people doesn't mean that we should be willing to basically have a job for life. I mean, at the end of the day, the
Right,
university's not going to feel that way when they fire you because your coordinators weren't very good at their jobs.
right, right. And and I'm like I said, and it's all school dependent and all fan dependent. Maybe people don't care if they win or lose right now with Iowa. I don't know.
I think
I
people.
can't
I
imagine
think.
that being the
I think
case.
people care, but at the same time, I think people are also. Um, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure there are clear expectations of winning right now. I think people are just. They've kind of gotten in a losing mindset, and when you have that, I mean, it's hard to get people back to the point where they care again.
Now you're talking like Iowa State.
Yes, well, but I mean, look at Iowa State, though. I mean, Iowa State has done a really good job about pulling themselves around and bringing a program like your football program. You live in a very difficult conference, and
Yes.
you have turned that into a program that is at least that may not great all the time, but it's still respectable.
No, exactly. I mean, we're not the cheesecake on the
Yeah.
schedule, but we're not the hard one either. You know what I mean? But that's the other thing too is, I mean, not that the Big Ten is a terrible
Mhm.
conference. It has fallen in the last few years, I would say.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, the top teams are still good. You know what I mean? It's just as a conference as a whole. Um, but it's one of those things to me where Iowa State, not only are they competing in the Big 12, trying to get players, which is difficult,
Yeah.
but they're not even the first school. They're not even the top school that people want to go to in the state.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, how many? I mean, when you're looking at athletes, how many are actually really into I guess how many great athletes does the state of Iowa really even create?
12.
Not a lot.
I,
It's a short answer.
no, but I'm not even talking about that. But I'm just talking about, if somebody's going to go, well, I'm thinking about going to Iowa or Iowa State, even from out of state. Where are they going to go?
What's their goal? I mean, if they're going into veterinary science, they're going to go to Iowa State,
Yeah, well, most
or
football
they,
players
or I
aren't
mean,
doing that stuff.
or they're being an engineer. I mean, what are your goals? Iowa State has a lot of
Our,
programs that are
our
way better than Iowa's. I mean, you know,
well, no, our in-state students are thinking of that. The good college students that come up are not thinking that.
yeah,
They're thinking about I can play here. I'm gonna go here because I know I'll play all I want.
yeah.
That's what they're thinking.
Hmm.
You know, they're not. When they come from the out of state and all that, they're not thinking about all the school part.
No, well, in fairness, they're looking about who does me the most good.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is Iowa State generally doesn't do that because you're not going to get the exposure, you're not going to get the wins,
But
et cetera, et
but what you
cetera.
can hopefully do is get this when you're dealing with a lot of these people is, like if you're dealing with junior college level transfer guys, hopefully you can get those guys to see the value in your school. Even if it's not one of those, even if it's not something you'd expect them to do, you're like, okay, like I see like that this is a big enough school that I can have a chance to make an impact here where I wouldn't make an impact somewhere else because I didn't, I didn't basically put in my time at some other, big school.
Right. I mean, I get it. And I'm just saying, I mean, well, back when I was going to school,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of had that a little bit with the Davis brothers,
Yeah.
Troy and Darren. They were excellent running
Oh
backs.
yeah.
We had nothing else.
Yeah, well, that's another problem you occasionally run into is like when you don't have anything else, that also becomes a hindrance on your program.
Right. And and I get it. You know what I mean. And I'm not saying that we're ever going to win a national championship football wise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Basketball,
not expecting
you're
it.
all about it, but football, no.
Hey, we've actually I was thinking cross country
Uh,
because that's where we've got them all.
Iowa had,
I
I
don't
was
even
gonna say
remember. We have a lot of cross countries.
Iowa had some really good cross country people when I was here. Like my boss at campus and one of the girls said from my hometown actually were really good cross country athletes.
I think I think I think cross country is what we have the most championships in, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
So your cross country is your wrestling.
Well, yeah, wrestling used to be our wrestling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's that. Well, anyway, wrestling. A lot of the Title IX is basically destroyed wrestling in a lot of programs in the United States.
Yeah. No, but I mean, Iowa has an excellent program of wrestling. Iowa State has a decent program, but I mean, we used to be the top,
Mm-hmm.
and then now we're not.
Is your son talking about Herky?
No, he wants to watch Netflix.
Oh, well, that's crazy.
They they just got home,
Oh,
and my wife had texted me if to set up the Chromecast
okay.
so he could watch Netflix. So, which it's really easy to do. So,
What do you?
but he was coming in to tell me
So you
that.
use like a Chromecast to stream Netflix to your TV?
Yeah, I use so I have a Netflix on my phone, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so you just press the Chromecast button, and basically your my phone is the remote,
Oh, that's cool.
and it all goes to the TV.
Yeah, because
So yeah, it's nice and convenient.
I bought a HTV TV from Little Rex, one of the other hosts on the station who does the Doctor Who live cast with me.
Yep.
And so I have, this HDTV. Well, I don't have cable, and so, I've been looking for, and I don't have a good way to get internet up to that room in the house. So we've kind of been looking at a lot of different options as far as, what would be a good way to get, stream, Amazon streaming up there.
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously have to do if you're doing the Amazon, they have the Fire
Yeah,
box. $99. It works just like the Chromecast.
yeah,
Except for it has a remote. The difference between the Chromecast is basically the Chromecast. Obviously, if you have Google Chrome, you can cast things to it really easily. Netflix, a lot of Android apps cast to it. Obviously, it runs it through the internet to your Wi-Fi. Your phone or your computer is just the medium that
yeah, yeah.
you know that is like the remote that tells it what to do it.
Mhm.
So if you have Wi-Fi there and it gets up there, either one of those would work really good.
Yeah, I just need.
I have a Roku also. It's okay, but I like the Chromecast better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just easier.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say I was looking at kind of like Roku boxes and things of that nature, but yeah, I haven't really decided on anything. It's like,
Yeah.
making choices is hard.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I bought the Chromecast when it first came out. Um, they're doing a lot more with it. More and more things are adapted to it. Even the Beyond, I think is it Beyond Pod that I'm using for my
Yeah,
yeah, Beyond Pod. You could pick up video streams and it'll Chromecast it up there.
really, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's kind of it's kind of a cool thing like that. So, it's pretty easy to work with. I mean, literally, it's just if it if the app or program has it, it's literally a little button that looks kind of like a little TV,
Mhm.
and you press it, and it's done.
Okay, I'll have to look into this.
So, pretty easy. So, in fact, I'm probably gonna have to step out for 1 second to give him my
Okay,
phone. So, give me 1 second.
cool. Well, I will talk while Porkchop is out. I will talk about Dragon Age Inquisition, which is what I've been eating up most of my time lately. Because yeah, I've been enjoying it quite a bit. Though this is I don't know if this is a common problem, but I've been playing it on my standard definition TV, and it is terrible on that. Now, why ask? Why is it terrible on that? Well, the reason it's terrible on a standard definition TV is because I can't find it. All the text is really, really tiny and super duper hard to read. This was a problem. It seems to be a Bioware problem with a lot of their games because they were on.
I'm back, by the way, Sam.
Hi, Porto. No, I was just talking about Dragon Age Inquisition and kind of how,
Oh yeah.
yeah, how I've been playing it, but it's kind of crappy because all the text is really tiny, and this was a problem on Mass Effect 2. And they fixed it for Mass Effect 3, and they've had like 2 games since then that was fine on Mass Effect 2, and then or Mass Effect 3, and then Dragon Age 2 were both fine. But for some reason, on this one, it's bad. It's super squinty.
Now I have Origins, and I don't remember which one on my PlayStation, and I didn't have any trouble with the text there, so it must be just the PC version.
No, I'm playing with the well. Origins was fine. Like I didn't have any problems with
Okay.
Origins.
Okay.
But Dragon Age Origins wasn't the problem. The problem was specifically uh, with like right now I'm playing Mass Effect Inquisition. Problem is Inquisition.
Right.
The problem was Mass Effect 2.
Right, and I never played I never played Inquisition.
Well,
And
yeah,
I only played a little bit of 2, and it was on the PlayStation probably 3.
yeah, yeah,
So, but
and
I didn't play it that
mhm.
much.
I really enjoyed all the Dragon Age games. I mean, I enjoyed the Mass Effect games too, but it's really hard. You have this very classic RPG kind of game, and it's really hard to enjoy it when you can't read any of the text, or it's really hard to read. Like you just gotta like concentrate on the text. It's like, I have no idea what you're out there.
Yeah, no, I got what you're saying there. And I haven't played any of the games yet that have that.
Well, and I think it's
So,
from the research I've done, this is an issue of a standard definition TV. Like if I was playing on an HD TV, it'd be fine. But because it's a standard definition TV, then that's where the problem comes from.
ah.
Yeah. Which strikes me as kind of weird. Like, why would it be that way? And there's no sliders or anything to fix it.
Yeah, nothing to make the font
Yeah,
bigger or anything
no.
like that.
Like, a little help, please. Maybe a tiny bit.
I'm laughing a little bit because sorry, but so with one of the new laws with Obamacare,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something I'm dealing with now
Yeah.
because I work for a printing and mailing company.
Yeah.
Um, you have to have the font when you print your directories and things a certain size,
Ah.
and it is way bigger than
Anyone.
anybody
Anyone
prints
would
with.
choose to.
Right, and for one, most people print with whatever font they're going to use, and they're usually using the number 10 font, which is kind of like a standard font like Twitch is using right
Yeah.
now in the chat. It's about that size. Well, now they want you to use 12 point
Okay.
font,
I
which
was gonna say, wasn't it like
you doesn't seem like a big number,
I
but
seem
guess
to
what? That
remember.
adds a lot of
No, I
pages.
remember reading like some kid did the math on the amount of ink that this was gonna like basically cover, like as far as expense, if the government to do this, and it was like a stupid amount of ink they were gonna have to spend to be able to print all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, okay, so there is two books that we are going to be currently uh, working with for the Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is HMSA out here. And it's about 200 pages and then a cover. That's with the current font that we use now and everything. With the 12 point, it jumps it up to 220 pages. That's significant amount, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah.
And we're not talking 10 books either.
No.
We're talking 75,000.
Well, and that's part of the problem. Like nobody thought this stuff through. So it was, it's your classic law of good intentions. We want to help people out, and obviously them, being old people, not being able to read things is a bad thing. We want people to be able to read stuff. Therefore, the answer to this problem is we want to basically have everybody use this larger font. Well, how much is that going to cost? Well, we didn't really think about that.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing is um I know it's good, like you say, it's the good intentions. It's
Mm.
for people actually who have a hard time seeing
Yeah,
and things like that. But we have other resources for that. How many people are there that actually have a hard time seeing? You know what I mean? Wouldn't it be easier for you to basically only print like a couple hundred books when people
that
request that
for
book
people, or just
instead of making it mandatory that all the books are that way?
or if you just use your database to tell you, okay, this person is likely to have of a certain age group. We'll send them the larger text version. Otherwise, we're not going to bother. And,
Right.
and
And
otherwise,
but I mean, you can send a book, and if they say they have a hard time, and request a new book with larger font, you know what I mean? Hey,
yeah.
I have a hard time seeing. Request a new book, and then you have it there. You know what I mean? Like I said, you'd be printing a couple hundred instead of every one, and that's the other. Like I said, it's everybody always thinks, well, everybody's against everybody because we only do it. We don't do it for these people. Well, not everything's for for all these people.
Yeah.
Let's do it for the masses, and then accommodate accordingly.
Let's try to meet our needs in the most efficient way possible.
Right. But that's not how the government works for
Well,
sure.
the
So,
government is all about one size fits all solutions. I mean, the government can't work in any other way. It's
so
not built to work in an efficient way. I mean, for better or for worse. I mean, you and I, based on our political leanings, tend to think the general inefficiencies of the government is one of those inexcusable things. But at the same time, the government is going. I mean, how it's hard to at the same level of efficiency, finding and addressing everyone's individual concerns, also tends to lead to other inefficiencies in other directions. So so how many of these books would we just have laying around at the end of the year if we just print off 300 or 400 of them? Now, or print them on demand, which then increases your cost in a different way.
no, and I also understand though that the government also assumes that nobody has a computer.
Yeah, well,
when we could simply email, when we could simply email people a copy and they could basically
Email?
change the
What
font
is
all they
this?
wanted.
Or they could just hit control on their mouse wheel and just make the font bigger that way.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying, and zoom in and all
Mhm.
that. You know what I mean? Where they could do that, because guess what? As far as I remember, Adobe PDF Reader is still free, and it's pretty much on every computer.
That's crazy talk.
So,
Why
or you could send it as a Word document even.
why do you want to subject little people like this?
Because I hate
You
everyone.
hate everyone? Yeah, probably.
That's that's what I'm sticking with anyway.
Yeah, I think I believe this.
But no, I mean that's like I said, I do understand that not everybody does have a computer. I get it. And we can accommodate people who don't have computers, but why not use the people that do have computers and make it
Why not
cheaper?
try to address that?
Yeah,
No, I don't
you know.
disagree with the sentiment. I think you're talking to the wrong person. You're trying to win someone over. Like,
Oh, I don't
I,
think anybody would
I,
disagree with me is the problem.
that everybody sees the problem and they're like, "Yep, sure is a problem. Not going to do anything
Yes,
about it."
exactly. It's just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the paper if the paper company, guess what's, maybe they're the ones lobbying to say, "Hey, we need to make larger font because I need to sell more paper." I don't know.
It's Mike. It's Mike. It's like,
Probably.
we cut down a lot of trees every year. We want to make sure. We want to make sure we're taken care of.
It could be. I've heard of crazier things.
Yeah, eh,
Probably said them.
probably. Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I just like the government inefficiency is it's a killer for I think everybody. I don't think that's a one person issue. I think everybody sees it.
Well, it's the
So
nature of. I mean, you go to like Max Weber and like his original writings on bureaucracy, and he talks about how government is going to be efficient. Government is always going to take as much time to do whatever job it has as it can because that's the nature of bureaucracy. I don't know.
it doesn't have to be is the problem.
Well, you and I say that because we view things differently. We view things
Right.
from a pragmatic point of view. Like, okay, like
Did you
how would we
did you just say I'm pregnant?
pragmatic?
Oh, it had me worried there for a minute.
No, no.
But no, I get it.
That's a whole nother ball of or can of worms, such as it is.
And I get it. Like I said, I do view. I like a thing. I also look at inefficiencies all the time,
Yeah,
and I try to, in my own line of work, and I try to solve them the best I can.
yeah. Well, you're
You know,
trying.
I do understand that inefficiency fixing costs money sometimes that you don't
Yeah,
have. I do get that. And I'm not saying that everything has to be cured that way. I get it.
yeah.
Yeah, I could spend, $10 million and buy a new computer program that's more efficient.
Mm.
I get that not everything, but there are certain things that, it doesn't cost money.
No, yeah. Like I said, I don't think I don't think there's one perfect solution. Is the problem, and as long as there isn't, we're all gonna disagree, and like you can ask a dozen different people how to make the government more efficient, and you're probably gonna get a dozen different answers. That's not saying that you know. I think there's a certain amount of if we wanted to make it better, we could.
We can make it better. We just fire everybody.
My solution's always been start out by if somebody jumps new into office, start out by saying we're going to take 5% off the top. We're going to start going down a list of federal bureau agencies and different stuff. What does this do? Okay. What do? Okay. You two do the same things. become one department. Okay, do you need as many people as you did before when you're two departments? No. Okay, bye bye.
Hey, but then the Obamacare solution didn't work.
Well, we knew Obamacare wasn't going to work even when it was passed. I mean, I don't. I guess I don't feel any pangs of offensive or defending. You feeling bad about Obamacare being terrible, because Obamacare was always terrible. You know,
Yeah, when you have to write a 2,000, page thing for it,
that's what you can say about
there's
our
something
budget
wrong.
every year too. Our budget every year is terrible too. When
Yeah.
you have these huge bills, I mean, hopefully that's something that we see less of. But I mean, I go back to the Republican Congresses of the early 2000s and look at the crap they passed. I mean, they passed a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
like terrible bills.
It is not one-sided.
No, I mean, Republicans are just as guilty as Democrats, and that's why I think a lot of people are still very frustrated. Of the Republicans and conservatives are still very frustrated with the party in what looks like a party that hasn't really learned its lessons. Like we're gonna probably nominate. And I don't have a problem with the moderates in the party. I feel like the party needs to have moderate. We need to have multiple voices, to represent multiple points of view. I don't have a problem with liberal Republicans. We should have people who represent the areas they come from. If a liberal Republican is the one who gets elected in somewhere like California, then we should welcome that person into our party, because that realistically, those are the people we can get elected in some of these areas.
Right.
We shouldn't shun, just because they don't meet some, ridiculous ideological purity standard. If I remember the point, like, no, these people should represent their constituents. At the end of the day, I mean, I was the same thing about Democratic Party too. I mean, why does Bruce Braley not get elected in Iowa? Well, saying shit about farmers didn't help very much, now did it, Bruce?
No, it will not. That's one place you do not want to say bad
Yeah,
things about farmers.
that probably wasn't the good starting point to your campaign. Uh, and I guess we can look at this in a lot of different ways, and I, for one, just feel like we're not these different people, different voices should be representative of the areas they have, and we have leadership in the Republican Party that is either it has basically you have the two veins. It's the one that's we need to be way too we have this purity standard of these ideas and no other, and then on the other hand, like, well, we have to get elected no matter what to do whatever. I'm like, yeah, but if we're always worried about getting elected, then we're not ever worried about doing the right thing.
Well, and I think that's what it is on both sides. They're always
No,
they're
no,
always worried about being
no, no,
elected again, even if they're in office. They're not worried about what they're going to do. They're just worried about getting
no. What
elected
I
again.
just said totally applies to both parties. There is
Yeah, no, no, I know
there is
that.
the
I know
ideological
that.
purity, and then there is the other side of people who is just like, yeah, we'll work on it. When we have a chance, we'll take care of it. We want to definitely we'll work on it when we have time. It's like, yeah. There's never a good time to do these things, though. I mean, that is the history of like something like Obamacare. Like, they took like it or not like it. I mean, the Democrats took a huge hit passing that thing. No, it was something that was very ideologically important to them, and that's why they did it. But at the same time, if you're a member of the Democratic constituency and you say, it was the right thing to do, and we did, we felt very strongly about it, and this was the time to do it, then you would say, it's worth the hit. But if you're part of the say is that, well, yeah, it was worth the hit, but then we crippled ourselves for the next 15 years because of it, because we did it right before a major census and a redistricting. Therefore, we've all these different state legislatures, and we're not going to be a force in the House. The Democrats aren't going to be a force in the House of Representatives until the early 2020s at the soonest. This is assuming Republicans don't do something amazingly stupid to manage to ruin their own fortunes. But
Right.
I mean,
No,
and you can't ever say Republicans are capable of doing something amazingly stupid. Because I think history has shown us they are very capable of doing some amazingly stupid things.
Yeah, no, both parties are, and I've told people I'm not, I'm not actually against a universal healthcare
You
system,
just like it to be good.
but yeah, and I just don't want to pay for stupidity,
Yeah,
and that's what it feels like I'm doing.
yeah.
You know, I wish that I wish I don't want to say compromise, but I wish both sides would work together more at
Yeah.
least to make to make things actually viable and smart.
No, but that's the problem, right? Like nobody wants to compromise, and I think there is compromise out there.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
no, no, no,
I think we've managed to drive everyone off our chat with this discussion of
that's
politics.
fine. Where I wanted them. No, 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 and and I get it. I compromises it
Yeah,
happens, and we don't see it all the time. But I'd like to see compromise
you'd
and
like to see compromise on the big stuff.
with other solutions, yeah, instead of our party against your
Yeah.
party.
Well, in the tribalism
And
help.
I'd like to see Republicans give a little bit more
Mm,
to the Democrats sometimes, but I'd like to see the Democrats give a little bit more to the Republicans. I'd have more respect for both sides if
yeah.
they did that.
Yeah, I don't expect it to happen anytime soon.
I don't think the ideological of the two parties is that far off from each other, though.
Probably not. I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say.
I think, you know,
Well,
so
at the end of
I think the compromise
and
is
the thing,
could happen.
well, and the thing that I think gets lost in the mix a lot of times is that at the end of the day, regardless whether you like one party or not, they do what they think is they're doing what they think is right. And there's the problem that I tend to think is there's too much of it is the villainization of both sides. Like because human beings work better when we can see when we have a villain. Like the everything would be fine except for those guys. And our election our politics tend to lead into this because we're always running elections where it's an us versus them election. So it's like, well, you guys would have had new yachts for everybody. But, except for those guys who I'm currently running against, it's a very election minded mentality. And that's arguably a case for, why, the original Constitution had, things like senators be appointed by state legislatures rather than be direct elections by people because you run into less of that when
Right,
you don't have to worry about direct elections.
right. Nope, that's very true. And
I mean, that's never changing, right? Anyone who thinks
yeah,
the 18th Amendment, 18th, 20th Amendment, I forget which off the top of my
I can't
head.
remember either.
We're like, one of them. Yeah. Whichever one, the direct election of the senators, that's never getting repealed. That's never getting reversed.
No,
But I think it's an interesting discussion. I don't think it's a particularly productive discussion because it's the thing that's interesting about senators in a world, as I just mentioned, like the House of Representatives being, you know, basically it's gerrymandered. I mean, both parties are really guilty, are terribly guilty of it, but it's one of
yeah,
these things. Republicans control more states, therefore they have more gerrymandering in favor. What's interesting is that because Senate has become something that's all these direct elections with senators, Senate, states don't change. So the Senate seats have actually become a lot more interesting politically because you have these big elections, and in these fixed values, for lack of a better term, and we could have some really interesting races and see some really diverse populations. People have to actually, politicians actually have to be responsive to everyone in their state, not three something like 150, 1.5 million people or whatever the average congressman represents.
right, right. Yeah,
And now,
yeah, but
does it always work that way? Not always. I mean, obviously, your election for senator in Hawaii wasn't the most interesting race in the world.
No, to be honest, none of ours were.
No, hey, there was the potential for it, but it didn't end up working out that way.
Nah, there's not really that potential for it.
Well, you've had Republican governors.
Right. Um, our Republican governor not was a very liberal
But that's okay
Republican
because you live in a
governor.
liberal state. Like,
No, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not, but like you were saying before, and to be honest, most people would have considered her a Democrat. The only reason I think she was on the Republican side was because that's how she knew she could win elections, not going up against many people. Was she a terrible governor? No. Was she the best? No. Better than the one we have now. I'll give her that.
he's gonna be gone.
Who, by the way, is no longer going to be
Yeah,
governor. So
yeah, and that's he lost his primary. I mean, if he had not lost his primary, there would have been a strong chance you'd have elected another Republican.
nope.
And there was a better chance than him.
There was a better chance if he was running than Ige, who actually won. Yes, but he still wouldn't have. The Democrats have done a very good job over here of basically saying, we represent the unions. Republicans hate you.
Republicans hate.
We have them.
Republicans will probably say with unions because your unions tend to be corrupting influences.
Well, you understand what I'm saying, though, and the Democrats have been very good at doing that, and so we have a majority of people who are employed with unions. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they're going to vote Democrat most of the time, which is why we're always going to have Democrats here.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about it. Well, I am.
You're complaining, you're complaining about it in the sense that you can't really do a whole lot about it.
Right. I mean, yeah, I can't do a whole lot about it. It sucks, don't get me wrong. And I understand why people want to be in a union and want to vote that way. They think it's the safest way. But it's not the best way.
Well, it's not necessarily what's best for people at the end of the day. It tends, it's the people who are represented by the union are not. The union tends to do a good job of taking care of itself, and not always a great job of taking care of its other members. The rank, it's amazing how well the leadership lives versus the rank and file.
No, and also the unions over here, they might do great things. Well, I don't want to say great things, but they might do things that help their union constituents, but they'll do things that hurt other unions.
Yeah.
And they have no care about it. So it's a very much.
I mean, you could argue.
A greedy thing.
You could even argue that's been the case for a while. I mean, look at the. A lot of the environmentalism stuff is very hurts. A lot of the oil unions, a lot of the coal workers unions, those kind of the unions who you tend to like the traditional union folks. Where on the other side of things, like governmental union people, like I don't know, I have trouble feeling overly sorry for government workers because like at the end of the most part you're working a desk job. Like, why do you need a union for that?
Because
I don't see it.
Stuff.
I don't see it. I don't know. I mean, I get this is something Kennedy did back in the in the '60s, and it's always been this kind of collusionist thing. Yeah, it really is kind of collusion. I mean, there's really no two ways about it. Oh well. Oh, Porkchop, we've done talking for a bit over an hour. Why don't we we could keep talking, but I feel like let's do a short show this week and maybe call it good, and we'll have a longer show next time with Scott.
No, that's fine. We'll make everybody's new year a little bit brighter and not talk so much.
Not brighter, literally, but brighter.
No, not brighter.
How can you get hold of you, Porkchop?
The best way to get a hold of me is Twitter And I am at Porkchop Hawaii, which Apsana says it's so much better in the ending credits.
This is true. And I am Sayomara V on Twitter. You can also email the show at Grand Old Podcast. I'll be happy to listen to any other or any emails you have for us. I will definitely check out and read to the guys. You can also check out all the other fine stuff here on RivalCast Media. We have Paramount Gosu, who's going on ahead of us. We have D, our fellow Iowan, his Cheap Moon. We have the guys in Ohio with RivalCast. A lot of good shows here on the station, so you should check them out when you have a chance. Anything else, Porkchop?
Sorry, I was muted because I've got the sirens in the background. But no, just also don't forget, Scott wasn't here. You can get a hold of him at Alvarado_Scott and check out his photographs. He takes awesome photographs and sells them.
You should buy some. It's Scott's birthday on the 6th of January. So because he's definitely not going to listen to this show, you should definitely go out and wish him a happy birthday on that day.
I know I'm going to.
Tell me about it. Same here. Okay, everybody. Everyone have a good night. In 73s.
You have been listening to Far Afield on RivalCast Media, and make sure to check out all the other great shows at rivalcastmedia.com. Our email is farafieldpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at farafieldcast. Sayo can be found at Sayomara V. Scott can be found at Alvarado_Scott. And Porkchop can be found at Porkchop Hawaii. Thank you for listening.
Sometimes my get up is all gone. Everything I do just turns out wrong. My mood is dark just like a tomb. I hear you laughing in the other room. I blame you for the smile upon my face. The daily grind has me so uptight. Try to unwind when I come home at night. I try every trick in the book. You give me that special look. I blame you for the smile upon my face. I blame you for the smile upon my face. You make me think there might be hope for the human race. Whenever I sit across from you, I got a table with a view. I blame you for the smile upon my face. One of these days, this race will be all run. Some battles lost, some battles will be won. If on that day I get my way, the last words you're gonna hear me say, I blame you for the smile upon my face. I blame you for the smile upon my face. You make me think there might be hope for the human race. Whenever I sit across from you, I've got a table with a view. I blame you for the smile upon my face. I blame you for the smile upon my face. Yes, I blame you for the smile upon my face.